5.3 Solving quadratic equations by graphing and factoring, day 2. Objectives are the same as day 1. So we're going to get into is special products and factors. So we're going to talk about the difference of two squares. And we're going to talk about perfect square trinomials. When you look at the difference of two squares, you have a squared minus b squared. When it's in that situation, when it's a value that you can, it's a perfect square, if you can take the square root of it and get whole numbers for the a and the b values, it's going to break down to a plus b times a minus b. Perfect square trinomials, when it's set up that it's a value squared that you can take the square root of at the beginning, at the end, and the middle is 2 times those values individually, depending on the sign before the middle term is going to determine whether it's a minus b, the quantity squared, or a plus b, the quantity squared. And we'll get into how to do that and how to look at those. So our first example for today is special factors. Find the roots of the equation by factoring 4x squared equals 25. First step, make sure the equation is in standard form. In order to do that, I have to subtract 25 from both sides. So I get 4x squared minus 25 equals 0. Then I need to identify that the equation is the difference of two squares. We're going to do this by determining that each term is a perfect square. The way that we do that is by looking at them. The first term is 4x squared. Okay, you can take the square root of 4x squared. Okay, the square root of 4x squared is 2x, and that's going to be my a value. Look at the value at the end. It's 25. The square root of 25 is 5. That's going to be my b value. So now I can rewrite it in the form of a squared minus b squared. So a is 2x. I'm going to square that value. And b is 5. I'm also going to put squared in with that value. So this is what it looks like. Now I can factor the difference of the squares, because we know by looking at the table, and this is something you'll get to know as you do it, that a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. So then I plug in my a and my b value. I get 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 5 equals 0. From there, I have two separate parts. I know that multiplying anything by 0 ends up being 0. So I can set each part equal to 0. So 2x plus 5 equals 0, or 2x minus 5 equals 0. Now you're just doing your basic algebra skills that you're good at. So for our first one, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides, divide both sides by 2. You get x equals negative 5 over 2. And then for the other one, you're going to add 5 to both sides, divide both sides by 2, get x equals 5 over 2. Then you check it, okay? Make sure you're right. Just plug it back in, okay? 4x squared equals 25. Plug in negative 5 halves. You square negative 5 halves means you square the top, you square the bottom, okay? Negative times negative is positive. 5 squared is 25. 2 squared is 4, okay? When you have fractions, this is the same as 4 over 1. So 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom cancels out. You get 25 equals 25. Repeat the process for 5 halves. Same concepts. You get 25 on top, 4 on the bottom. 4 times that is the same as 4 over 1. 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom cancel out. 25 equals 25. You are golden. Okay? Make sure you write down the steps and follow the steps. Now it's your turn. This one is for you to try. Enter it online. Okay? Enter it in online. So now that was dealing with the difference of two squares. Now we're going to look at some with perfect square trinomials. Okay? So once again, we want to make sure that the equation's in standard form. So in order to do that, we're going to subtract 48x from both sides and add 32 to both sides. And then it's end up being equal to 0 now. Always look at it and see if you can factor out any numbers. When I look at this, all right, I know that I can factor 2 out of everything. Sometimes you're not going to be sure. You're going to factor out a small number, then maybe go to it and see that you can still factor out another number. If you can't identify the biggest right away, then do it in small parts, but make sure you pull out everything you can. Now that I have my 2 factored out, I'm going to divide both sides by that value. So I divide both sides by 2. All right, I'm left with 9x squared minus 24x plus 16 equals 0. At this point, you have to look at it and identify. We know this one's going to be a perfect square trinomial, but you need to know how to identify it. Okay, we can do this by determining if the first and last terms are perfect squares. Then you multiply those terms together and then multiply it by 2. Make sure it matches the equation. Okay, so my first term, 9x squared, is it a perfect square? Can I take the square root of 9x squared? Well, yeah, I get 3x. Look at my last term, it's 16. Is it a perfect square? Square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so then 3x is my a value, 4 is my b value. Take 3x times 4, you get 12x. Okay, then multiply that by 2, you get 24x. Look at my value. Is it 24x? Yes. All right, the 24x is a match. That's how I know it's a perfect square trinomial. Now from there, I can rewrite it in perfect square trinomial form. Okay? Which is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Plug in the a and the b that we solved for. Okay, a was 3x, b was 4. Now that I have this setting, I know that this is also equivalent. Okay, I know the same setup. Ax squared minus 2ab plus b squared is the same as a minus b squared. So now you're just transferring your values. A is 3x, and b is 4. So 3x minus 4, the quantity squared. You're going to set each of your factors equal to 0. Well, guess what? It's the same factor, right? So 3x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to both sides, divide both sides by 3. You get x equals 4/3. When we're squaring a factor, it's the same thing again. It's the exact same process. Okay. Now, find yours. Find the roots of yours. Enter it in online. I guess no, never mind. We're going to finish by checking it. I jumped the gun. Relax. All right. So plug 4/3 in wherever their x was. Remember, when you're squaring a fraction, square the top, square the bottom. Okay? That gives you 16 over 9. Do yours. Do the math from there. Use a calculator, use your brain, whatever works the best. All right? You get 32 equals